heading towards the skies for a flight over some of the royal citadels of Languedoc, often, and wrongly, called Cathar Castles by tourists. These medieval fortresses, now candidates for UNESCO World Heritage status, stand proudly across the departments of Aude and Ariège. Our journey begins in Bram, a small town halfway between Castelnaudary and Carcassonne. Established in the 11th century, Bram was built around its church in a circular layout, expanding in successive rings to become the largest circular village in Europe. Arques Castle lies east of Limoux. Built as a residence in the Isle de France Gothic style, construction began in 1280. Peyrepertuse has been occupied since antiquity, starting as a small fortified site. First mentioned in 1020, it became part of the Kingdom of Aragon's defensive line in 1162. In 1240, it passed into the hands of the French king, who turned it into a key stronghold against Aragon. Louis IX and his successors sought to assert their power here. Peyrepertuse remains a jewel of medieval military architecture, standing proudly at the end of the 13th century to face its southern rival. Like Peyrepertuse, Quéribus was integrated into Aragon's defensive line in 1162. During the Albigensian Crusade, it served, like Puilaurens, as a last refuge for dispossessed lords and heretics. Its commander resisted the king and the church until the siege of 1255, when, captured, he surrendered Quéribus in exchange for his freedom. In the 10th century, the Abbey of Saint Michel de Cuxa founded the Church of Saint Laurent, linked to a fortified structure. This site became known as Puilaurens. The abbey kept control until the Albigensian Crusade, when it sheltered the heretics. Alongside Quéribus, it stood as one of their final refuges. In 1255, Saint Louis seized Puilaurens together with Quéribus. From then on, it served mainly as a rear base, far from the front lines of the conflicts of the mid-14th century. The castle of Puivert was built for military purposes, unlike most constructions of the time, which were religious in nature. Dating from the 12th century, it endured a 3-day siege in 1210 during the Albigensian Crusade, before becoming part of the French crown's possessions. In 1232, the Church of the Heretics sought refuge in Montségur, a small defensive site with Cathar religious dwellings, and made it their headquarters. Lords driven from their lands, men-at-arms, and simple believers gathered there for protection. Montségur became the symbol of religious, military, and political resistance. In 1243, the French king decided to put an end to it. The siege lasted a year, ending in the execution of the Cathars, burned at the stake. Afterward, a new castle was built on the site. Mirepoix enjoys a remarkable location between Foix, Toulouse, and Carcassonne. The town embraced Catharism in the late 12th century, before falling to the French Catholic Church in 1209. Its fate changed again in the 13th century when a catastrophic flood, caused by the breaking of a natural dam that had held back the waters of Puivert's lake, destroyed much of the population and the Bastide. The town was rebuilt following the regular plan of Bastides, with arcades, half-timbered houses, and the Maison des Consuls, preserving the medieval atmosphere to this day.